folks, welcome to Set Apart Homestead. This is Travis here at the Prepared Homestead. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It means a lot to just have you watch my silly videos that I make, where most of the time I try to not make them too silly, that I'm hoping that you'll get a little bit something out of them. Maybe open your minds, learn a little bit, share it with your friends. So I do appreciate your viewership. Today, boy, there's so many things going on. It's getting to the point, 2020 is getting crazy, guys and gals. And for someone that makes prepping videos, it's hard sometimes to figure out what I want to talk about today, because it's a very long list. And probably like most of my prepping type videos, it's going to be covering a few things instead of just one. Have you guys been watching gold prices lately? For those of you that do not know, the the price of gold based on the US dollar or any money, any currency, is usually a good gauge on how well the currency is doing. Because you see, gold, the value of gold never changes. It's always the same. It doesn't become more valuable or less valuable. The fluctuation in the price is the value of the currency purchasing it. If it becomes more valuable currency, then it's cheaper to purchase the gold. If the currency is less valuable, then it takes more of that currency to purchase the gold, making the gold appear more valuable. Right now, the price of gold is about higher than it's ever been. And while you're not going to see it talked too much in, the front page news and, the top headlines of the mainstream news, if you just Google gold prices and look up news articles on it, virtually every financial news agency or news agency period in the world, especially the country, is talking about it. And it's got a lot of people in the financial community very worried. Last year, I talked about how everything going on in the economic system is setting us up for a financial collapse. We saw months ago, back the end of last year, the first of this year, where the short-term bond market was basically reversed or flipped around the way it shouldn't be, which also makes people nervous when short-term bonds have more value than long-term bonds. And I won't go into that. If you want to look into that yourself or figure out why, because that's kind of a long subject there. Then we've had all this COVID-19 stuff. We've had massive rioting, insurrection, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of damage. The country is nearly shut down in many areas of the country. And then the nation, the U.S. government, is spending trillions, with a T, of dollars on top of the money that they already spend that they don't have, to try to continue to get the economy moving by, giving out money to people that they won't let go to work. So I cannot really think of a better recipe for economic disaster than what has happened over the last 6 and really 9 to 12 months. But really in the last 6 months, it's like someone hit the nitrous oxide, the turbo button, the supercharger, and it's moving at a much higher pace. That's my opinion. So with all the things that are going on in the world, one thing that many people aren't really paying attention to right now is the value of the dollar and the economy. I mean, we hear about it from the president and other people in the media and in government that the economy is doing great. It's amazing how strong the economy is doing, even with this coronavirus pandemic, because, even though the stock market took a little dip at first, man, it's back up running strong again because the stock market's great. The stock market, stock market, stock market, stock market. That's all we hear about. Well, I'm sorry to break the news to them, but the stock market and the numbers and the fluctuations of the stock market is a really, really, really poor measure of how the entire economy is doing. And people deep into the economy and people that understand the economy get it. But the masses, the people, the average person on the street, all they hear is, well, the stock market went up again and it's been going up for several days in a row, so economy must be good, and they buy it because they don't quite understand that the stock market really is very reactionary and is not a good prediction on what's going on in the economy. Now, with all the things that can help predict and understand, gold is one of them. And we are seeing the value of gold, or the price of gold. Let me correct myself, because the value does not change. The value of gold has been the same for thousands of years. The price of gold when purchased with U.S. currency is skyrocketing, which means our dollar is dropping. And if you look at the graphs, I'm going to try to point it out on the camera because I don't have a way right now to edit it so that I can put an actual graph up. It's been down here, and then it's been ticking up, and then it may go down, and it'll tick up, and it'll tick up, and it'll do this, and then all of a sudden, recently, it's gone like that. Yeah, it's a little scary for a lot of people out there that keep track of this kind of stuff. And I think what it is personally is just one more sign of the time that we are living in, and it's telling us that among all the other things that are collapsing and crashing around us, our economy is also getting ready to collapse. And so part of this video is to kind of make you aware of this, because most of you probably are, but some of you may not be. To make you aware of this and start watching this, because sometimes we get distracted by all the other things going on, because trust me, there's a lot of things going on right now, you know. So be watching that and get yourselves ready. I think that we are on the edge of something bad happening, and I think the vast majority of people, and I've talked to some people recently that I know that aren't preppers. You know, they're kind of a little awake, you know, they kind of sort of know things are going on, but they're not really awake. They're still kind of, you know, living that drone lifestyle with the masses. And after talking to them, basically what I figured out was they think that all the scary bad stuff that was talked about back in February and March and April has all happened, and it's kind of going back to normal. You know, it's a slower process than what they had hoped to go back to normal, but it's going back to normal. And by the end of the year, things will be back to normal, and by next year, we'll look back on the first part of 2020, and it'll be like a dream that's almost forgotten, because that's what people do in America. We forget what happens, and we never learn from our past. And I think that that's where we are in the United States, that most of the people kind of have this idea that, you know, all the bad stuff that's going to happen for 2020's happened. The pandemic, the riots, you know, the protests, it's kind of all fizzling out. It's on its way out, and everything's going to start going back to normal. There was a prominent senator, I believe, and I cannot remember his name, but he's a Democrat senator, was interviewed in the last couple of days asking about Antifa and the riots in Portland and Seattle. And he basically said it's a myth. I mean, his exact words, he said it's a myth. There's nothing happening there. It's a myth. And I think that's what most people think of is, you know, you see in these riots. And for instance, I believe it's Portland now. They're on the 56th, 57th day of constant rioting. And we're talking very violent, very destructive rioting, not just walking through the streets holding signs. If you guys aren't aware of that, you need to start, you know, checking into it and seeing what's going on. I mean, they're using actual military tactics to try to take down government sites, government buildings, to take on local police and federal agents and officers. This has gone well beyond any type of protest. This is an all-out insurrection. And this is happening on a daily basis. And it's not just in Portland, and it's not just in Seattle. It's in multiple cities every day. People are getting shot. People are getting killed. Buildings are being burned. Destruction all around. And it's growing and growing and growing. Some of these riots in Portland and in Seattle, the numbers are in the thousands, multiple thousands of people together, just completely destroying the city. And the average American is just not aware of it. They just don't know that it's happening because it's not being talked about a lot. They're not being taught the truth. They're not seeing the truth about what's going on with the pandemic because they're only hearing one side, because the news media only tells one side. They're not hearing the truth about what's going on in foreign affairs with Russia and China and the Middle East and in Europe. They're not hearing that kind of stuff. So while you're aware maybe of what's going on, they're not. And it's planned that way. You know, it is orchestrated to be that way. They don't want most people, they don't want anyone to know what's going on, and they don't like it that you and I are awake and in tune with what is happening in our world. So the point is, folks, it's not over. We may be through the first quarter, but I don't even think we're that far into it yet. Even the president himself in the last couple of weeks has made statements like, we're not even seen the worst of it. The worst of it's yet to come, referring to the virus. He's talked about, the next 90 days is going to be a swamp draining like never before. But even people on the left has talked about, this virus and the things that are happening that will forever change America. That once everything's done, the America that we once knew will no longer be. And I think that that's true more than what the average person thinks. There is a definite battle for the very core of what the United States is, for the very core of what freedom is, of what liberty is, and we are in the midst of it. And folks, you need to start getting ready. I talked to someone just yesterday and said I fear that we're almost to the point that if you're not ready and you're not prepared, it's probably too late. I'm not quite ready to say that yet because I don't want to discourage people that are still trying to get ready. Can you ever fully get ready? Probably not, unless you have, a large amount of wealth to do that. But for the average person, you do the best you can, and you push yourself, and you make it a priority, because right now, it may be the only thing that saves your life and your family's life. There may be things that in a normal situation, a normal life, and normal times would be okay to spend money on and okay to spend time on. But right now, that may not be the time to spend on those extras, to focus on getting yourselves prepared. I think we're going to see some really hard times, and I think it's coming probably pretty soon. Most likely, we're going to start seeing things get a lot worse before the November election. I think we are going to witness the dirtiest, toughest, most aggressive election this nation has ever seen. And while I do think that one of the candidates is vastly worse than the other, I think regardless of who wins, it's going to be it's going to be bad afterwards, because the opposing side is going to fight. They're going to not take the results, regardless of what the results are. The opposing side most likely will not accept those results, and so it's going to be rough, folks. Grand solar minimum is affecting, I believe with my whole heart. I've gardened for years here in the Ozarks, and we're seeing the effect. And I've talked to many people around here that's gardened here their whole life, and they're saying it's just the weirdest weather that they've ever seen, and it's the hardest year they've ever seen to grow a lot of things. And so that's going to affect us also. The supply chain is still greatly damaged, and it's nowhere near back up to running like it should be. I've mentioned in another video, I've spoken to managers of 2 local farm stores around here, and they both have told me the same thing, that they just can't get stuff. That most of the supplies that they're getting in to restock their shelves are things that were manufactured a year ago. He said because there's just nothing being manufactured right now. They said they talked to one the other day, and he said that one of the things they're having a hard time getting, and that's pellets, wood pellets for like pellet stoves and stuff. They're having a hard time getting that kind of stuff. Lumber yards have taken a hard hit. A lot of the manufacturing, a lot of the farming. It's going to take a while for that to kind of catch up to the end of that supply chain, which is where you and I are at. And it's starting to. We're starting to feel that. But I believe it's going to get worse, folks. So, once again, I'm on here saying this is pretty much the same thing that I say quite often, and you probably get tired of it. And I hope that, you know, the only reason that I do it is that maybe someone will watch a video and it'll be enough to kind of wake them up and to get themselves ready and their family ready. And I've done maybe a very small part in helping someone else get just a little bit more prepared for what's about to happen. Because what has happened already, I believe, is going to be a very small amount of it's going to pale in comparison of what's yet to come. So folks, let's get ourselves ready. Remember, your heart, your soul, get yourself ready with the one upstairs. That's right. Get your Bibles out. If you don't get those out on a regular basis, then you're not prepared. You need to get those out, and you need to study them, and you need to get your soul prepared. Get your mind prepared for what's about to happen. Mental strength is more important in my mind than the physical training. And then get your body ready. The physical training, get that ready. Get yourself physically fit, whether it's exercising or just knowing a skill. And then get the supplies that you need, the things that you need, whether it's food, tools, land, animals, infrastructure, self-defense tools, whatever you need to start getting it. The rains are coming, and I think we're going to be nearing the time that the big doors of that big boat are about to close. And if you're not inside, you may not make it. So folks, I hate to sound like a doomsdayer. That's one thing I never wanted to do on this channel. But I also never thought that what is happening now would be happening at this speed and to this extent. So I feel I have an obligation to try to wake some people up. So folks, get yourselves ready. Wake your family up if you can, but if you can't, at least get yourselves ready because there's a storm coming. And if you're not awake for that storm, I'm afraid it's going to be a bad one. Speaking of storms, there's one moving in on me, so I'm going to get off of here. And thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.